everyone, it's Nicole and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we are going to divide and repot this unruly, sort of messy looking Oncidium here. So I've had this orchid since 2016. I repotted it back in April. It's grown 3 bulbs for me. So there's one over here, another one on this side, and then this one grew earlier in the year. Now this orchid does not look so great, and it's one of those orchids that I got along with my very first Sherry baby, and I did not know how to take care of them when I first started growing orchids. And you know, it originally came just with 1 bulb, so it came with this one. Obviously it's sort of, when it had leaves it was all over the place, but I'm gonna get rid of this bulb. It's been with the orchid for almost 5 years now, so I'm going to get rid of this and then maintain these growths over here. I'm going to clean up the leaves because a lot of these leaves are going to drop since they're pretty old. So as you can see, they're turning yellow. Yeah, this leaf is definitely, it's going to be gone. There's no point for the leaf. And then we are going to repot this because this orchid it's been growing this new growth, and I noticed that the root tips are desiccating a little bit. Not all of them, but I've been spraying it every single day, and I want to make sure that we're covering these roots so that they can grow properly. So we're going to get rid of this, and we are going to focus on the 2 new growths. So with that said, let me get this out of the pot, take off the medium, and see what we're working with. Okay, so I've removed the medium. I was a little bummed because the moss was still really good, but I ended up getting rid of it anyway. The root system looks good, so it's got nice of new root tips. So everything with a white tip we're gonna keep because that's healthy. And I wanna make sure that these new root tips up top with this new bulb get some access to the moss as well. So these down here we'll cut off, but the first thing we need to address is this bulb. So let me position this so that you can see better. This is the bulb that originally came with this orchid. I'm gonna see if I can rip it off, or this is gonna be it. Oh, that was easy. Okay. Well, that came off. Uh-oh, what the heck is this purple here? Let me cut this off and investigate. Okay, so that looks clean, but I'm a little concerned with that purple in here. So let's see. This has been growing just fine. I think I'm gonna cut a little bit more. Just wanna make sure that there's healthy tissue in here. Geez, this is a tough rhizome. I just don't like the look of that purple. All right, we'll just start small. Okay. This looks healthy. I'm not sure why it's that color there. Let me try my garden shears. I just want to make sure, okay, this is much better to work with. I want to make sure there's no purple going into the actual orchid. I think I can rip it from here. Let me cut this off around this part. We still have a little bit of sphagnum moss in there. Okay. And now what I'm looking for is I want to make sure that the rhizome is clean. And it does look clean, so this is where I cut. Can you see that? I'm not sure why I saw purple right here, but I don't even want to know. Provided this part of the rhizome is clean, I'm happy with that. You know, I want to make sure it wasn't fusarium or anything like that, but we are going to, I'm going to wash my hands. I'm going to spray this down with hydrogen peroxide, and I'll clean everything up and I'll be back. Okay, so I've cut off the majority of the dead roots. I tried to leave as much as possible with the white tips on them because that means that it's an active growth. When I'm thinking about the division for this, I'm thinking, you know, it has two directions of growth, right? So it has one here and one here. So they're going to grow one way and the other way. Ideally, I would like to remove this as well, but I sort of feel like if I do that, I have to divide it into two plants. And then, you know, we have 3 bulbs here and 3 here, but I prefer to have more bulbs together so that there's more energy for this plant. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to just keep this as a bundle together, and then next year we'll decide what we're going to do. I'm going to put a picture up of these blooms. I really, really like them. I have had experience with this orchid in the last few years, and I know that the leaves, once they get spent and they eventually fall off. So this one, for instance, one of the leaves fell off already. You can see some of these leaves are in a little bit not so great shape. So I think I'm just going to cut it off just to make my life easier. They are gonna fall off, but maybe what I'll do is I'll just cut the tips of the leaves. This one's definitely on its way out. It's broken, so I'm just gonna, yeah, it's gonna fall off. So I'm gonna get rid of that. I'll just do what I can. This will eventually fall off on its own, and then I'm just gonna start trimming up a little bit to make it look a little bit nicer. So these scissors have been sterilized again. I did not want to risk using them after I saw that little bit of purple on the rhizome earlier, just in case it was fusarium. So we're gonna trim this up. Usually I don't do this, but I know that these leaves do fall off on their own, especially right after a repot. So I'm just gonna trim it up. And obviously we want this new growth will take over, and then everything will sprout from here, and this other new growth. And I really, really, really need to keep the air moving for this orchid, or else it's not going to be happy with me. Okay, I think that's enough. This one is a little bit too thick for my liking to remove it, but I think everything is fine. I will get to repotting it. So we are gonna pot this orchid up in a self-watering container. This is a 6-inch pot. The inside diameter is about 5 inches. It'll fit just fine. There'll be room for these to come in and a little bit of room on the sides. So I think this will be okay for 1 year. And I don't expect anything to grow from the back here. So I think I'm just going to move it towards, maybe I'll just center it, but I will start putting some moss in the bottom. And I made a stake because we don't have too much. We don't have too much by way of roots, but we'll see how it goes. And I want to make sure that that new root growth here gets some contact with the moss. I can't believe I've had this orchid for so long. I got this from my mom along with the Shari baby, and it's gone through so many years of neglect, yet it's bloomed for me so many times. And I don't know the ID for this, but if anybody knows what this orchid is, I'd be really, really appreciative. I don't know if this is a, like a cool grower. I don't know if this is a hot grower. It is prone to that leaf spotting, and the leaves just, every time I repot it, the leaves just literally fall off pretty fast. The old leaves, that is, which is why I cut them off. And I'm going to make sure that I take a little bit of cinnamon for the leaf tips to make sure that everything is okay and that we're not leaving any open wounds. I didn't do it for the rhizome. Normally I would do it for the rhizome, but I'm afraid of adding cinnamon and getting it on the roots. So hopefully everything will be okay. I did spray it down with hydrogen peroxide, so that should help. I think it's okay. So I think it's not wobbly. I think it's just fine. I think the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to top this off with some bark, and then I will be right back. Then I'll be done. Alrighty, she's all done. She is not perfect. She is not that wonderful looking. I know that a lot of the leaves have had issues, and that's because of my lack of air movement, I think. So I've increased the air, and I'm starting to see better results on the new growths. I did notice a little bit on the tip of this leaf that is a little bit discolored, but otherwise I have a heavy fan moving. So I'm very hopeful that moving forward, these new growths, here's another little spot there. These new growths, this one and the new one, I'm very hopeful that they'll be nice and healthy looking and that the leaves will look better. I did remove the leaves again because I've repotted this orchid in the past. I've had it for a while, and normally those leaves just fall off. They just wither away really fast after repotting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dust this off with a little bit of cinnamon, since I did cut into some fresh flesh. But otherwise, I am all done. So I'm going to put my tag in here. This is the third orchid that I've ever had. I do number my orchids. It's something that I like to see which ones I've had the longest. And this one obviously looked a little bit rough because it was one of my first orchids, and I learned a lot from it. And it's still alive and it's still blooming. Well, anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I will keep you updated on how this does. I'm hopeful this will bloom for me next year once this bulb matures. The blooms are gorgeous. The spike is very long. And again, I'm going to put a picture up. If anybody knows what Oncidium this is, I'd really appreciate it. Thanks again for stopping by, and I hope you guys have a good one. Bye.